Here are three of the stupidest or most ridiculously luxurious cars of all time, each one pushing the boundaries of extravagance, absurdity, or both. Whether it's a completely impractical design or an excessive amount of wealth and technology poured into a car that no one really needed, these cars stand out as strange, over-the-top creations. The 1974-1978 Cadillac Eldorado is an icon of excess, a car that stands as a symbol of the wild extravagance that characterized the luxury automotive world in the mid-1970s. It was Cadillac's bold attempt to push the boundaries of both luxury and innovation. But in doing so, it ended up creating a vehicle that was both stunningly opulent and profoundly impractical. With its front-wheel drive V8 layout, massive proportions, and chrome-covered exterior, the Eldorado was not just a car, it was an ostentatious statement, one that screamed for attention in the most over-the-top manner possible. One of the most controversial features of the 1974 to 1978 Eldorado was its front-wheel drive layout. At a time when rear-wheel drive was the norm for luxury cars, Cadillac took a gamble by introducing front-wheel drive in their flagship model. While this might have seemed like a bold move, it was one that added to the car's bulk and complexity. The massive V8 engine, paired with front-wheel drive, led to an unusual and sometimes clumsy driving experience. This layout, which was innovative for its time, made the car handle differently from most luxury vehicles, but in a way that left some drivers confused and frustrated. Instead of enhancing the driving experience, it made the car feel more ponderous and less responsive than it should have been, given its impressive stature and price tag. Speaking of size, the Eldorado's dimensions were almost comically large. It stretched over 18 feet in length and weighed over 5,000 pounds, making it one of the heaviest and most impractical cars of its era. It was so large that parking it could be a challenge in even the most spacious of garages. The sheer weight of the vehicle also meant that performance was hindered, especially when compared to other luxury cars that were more nimble and responsive. Despite the powerful engine, the Eldorado's colossal size and weight meant that it was sluggish in comparison to its peers. Performance was hardly a priority for Cadillac at this point in time. Instead, they focused on creating a car that was built for luxury and comfort, at the expense of practicality and driving dynamics. On the road, the Eldorado was an exercise in indulgence. It was equipped with all the luxury features Cadillac could throw at it: plush leather seats, power everything, a smooth ride, and an interior drenched in every type of wood veneer and chrome imaginable. But despite its impressive list of amenities, the car's size and fuel efficiency were an issue, especially during the oil crisis of the mid-1970s. The Eldorado's massive engine was a gas guzzler, consuming fuel at an alarming rate, and at a time when fuel prices were skyrocketing, this was a major blow to the car's desirability. The overindulgence that defined the Eldorado in terms of luxury also made it a prime example of Cadillac's failure to adapt to the changing economic climate. The excessive chrome detailing that adorned the Eldorado only added to its sense of bloated luxury. The front grille was a massive expanse of chrome, while the car's long, sweeping lines and exaggerated features made it look like a luxury yacht on wheels. The exterior design, while certainly striking, often came off as awkward and overdone. The Eldorado's sheer size and weight, combined with its heavy chrome styling, made it look cumbersome on the road. And it never quite achieved the sleek elegance that Cadillac intended. Instead of being an automotive work of art, it became a symbol of the excess that defined the 1970s, and not in a way that aged well. Despite its impracticality, the 1974 to 1978 Eldorado remains an important part of Cadillac's history. It represented the company's attempt to push boundaries and redefine luxury. However, the vehicle ultimately highlighted Cadillac's misguided understanding of what luxury meant in a changing world. While it was undeniably luxurious and impressive on the surface, the Eldorado's lack of practicality, excessive size, and questionable fuel efficiency made it a car that couldn't quite live up to the promises of its bold design. Looking back, the 1974-1978 Cadillac Eldorados is a fascinating relic of an era where excess and indulgence were prized above all else. It's a reminder of a time when automakers were less concerned with efficiency and practicality and more focused on creating cars that were ostentatious, grandiose, and unapologetically flashy. The Eldorado may have been one of the most luxurious cars of its time, but it was also a shining example of how luxury, when pushed too far, can become bloated and misguided. It was a car that aimed to impress, but in doing so, it lost sight of what truly matters in a vehicle: practicality, efficiency, and ultimately, driving enjoyment. Still, despite its flaws, the 1974-1978 Eldorado remains a fascinating chapter in Cadillac's history, a time when the brand's pursuit of luxury often crossed the line into the absurd. The 2004 Maybach Exelero was a car that epitomized the extreme side of automotive opulence, built not for practical purposes, but as a spectacle of absurd luxury and engineering excess. Created as a one-off by Daimler-Benz to showcase its new tires, the Exelero was a bizarre mix of futuristic design and untamed power. With a 700-horsepower twin-turbo V12 engine, the Exelero was capable of speeds that pushed the boundaries of what anyone could actually use or enjoy on public roads. Yet, despite this raw performance, the car's purpose was not to be a true sports car, but rather to flaunt extravagant engineering with little regard for everyday use. The Exelero's design was an angular, dramatic departure from the refined, classic luxury typically associated with Maybach. It had an imposing, almost intimidating presence, with sharp lines and a body that seemed more fitting for a sci-fi film than a luxury road car. The design, while eye-catching, was also one of the car's biggest flaws. Its excessive angles and aggressive profile made it appear more as an art piece or concept car than a road-going machine. The car's visual drama came at the cost of practicality, with poor visibility, a cramped interior, and proportions that made it impractical for anything other than cruising in ultra-luxury settings. Inside, the Maybach Exelero was nothing short of opulent. The cabin was fitted with the finest materials, including hand-stitched leather, polished wood, and gleaming chrome. High-tech electronics and luxurious comfort features were seamlessly integrated, and every detail spoke to a level of wealth and status that most could only dream of. Yet, for all its luxury, the interior was not particularly user-friendly. The car's layout, like its exterior, seemed more designed for show than function, and it lacked the sort of ergonomic thought that would make it enjoyable to drive or even spend long hours in. The attention to detail was undeniable, but the overall experience felt more like sitting in an expensive living room than in a car built for driving. The price tag of over $8 million was where the Maybach Exelero truly crossed the line into absurdity. While its luxurious interior, high-performance engine, and ultra-modern technology were undeniably impressive, they didn't justify the obscene cost. It was a vehicle created with no real purpose other than to showcase Daimler-Benz's tire technology and flaunt their engineering prowess. It wasn't destined to be practical or usable for any average car owner. It was meant for those who wanted to make a statement, no matter how impractical or excessive that statement might be. And despite the car's immense price, it didn't offer any unique or innovative features that couldn't be found in much cheaper, more practical vehicles from other luxury automakers. On the road, the Exelero's massive 2-ton weight combined with its large size made it cumbersome and difficult to maneuver, especially for a car boasting such immense power. It was clear that performance wasn't its strongest suit, despite the powerhouse engine. Instead, the Exelero was built for spectacle. Driving it was less about the thrill of the road and more about being seen in a vehicle that was as impractical as it was expensive. It was a car designed to be admired from afar, not one to take on long drives or make the most of its powerful engine. In terms of practicality, the Maybach Exelero was, of course, hopeless. The car was built as a showpiece, a statement of opulence and engineering excess. It had little regard for anything remotely resembling usefulness or day-to-day usability. With its odd design, massive weight, and limited purpose, it was almost a parody of luxury. The Exelero highlighted just how far car manufacturers could push the limits of both engineering and design without any real thought to what makes a good car. It was a vehicle meant to showcase wealth and status, not to be used or enjoyed for its performance or driving experience. Ultimately, the Maybach Exelero was a symbol of automotive absurdity, a car that took everything luxury was supposed to represent and pushed it to ridiculous extremes. It was one of the most luxurious and most impractical vehicles ever made, created purely for the spectacle of it all. It wasn't a car that anyone could realistically use or appreciate in a practical sense, but instead, it was a rolling monument to excess and indulgence. The Exelero remains a fascinating, if somewhat laughable, chapter in automotive history, a car built not for driving, but for sheer, unrestrained luxury. The Jaguar XJ220 is a classic example of a supercar that has seemed poised to define an era, but ultimately fell short of expectations, both in terms of performance and design. Originally conceived as a race car for the street, the XJ220 was meant to be Jaguar's answer to the Ferrari F40 and the Porsche 959, offering blistering speed and advanced technology. The car was initially planned to be powered by a monstrous V12 engine, a fitting power plant for such an ambitious vehicle. However, in a decision that would haunt the XJ220's reputation, Jaguar opted for a 3.5L twin-turbo V6 instead. While the V6 engine was still capable of impressive performance, it simply didn't live up to the promise of a V12, which was part of the appeal and mystique surrounding the car. This engine change was one of the most controversial aspects of the XJ220, leading to widespread disappointment among enthusiasts and collectors alike. At launch, the Jaguar XJ220 was priced astronomically high, making it one of the most expensive cars of its time. This high price tag, combined with its rare status, created immense hype and demand. Jaguar touted the car as an ultra-luxurious supercar with a top speed of over 220 mph, but the reality was that the XJ220 couldn't quite live up to its supercar billing in terms of driving dynamics or handling. Despite boasting impressive acceleration and top speed, the car's performance fell short of other contemporaries in the supercar market, such as the McLaren F1, Ferrari F40, or even the Porsche 959. The decision to replace the V12 with a V6 and the resulting performance that didn't live up to expectations created a dissonance between what Jaguar marketed and what the car actually delivered. Beyond the engine, the interior of the XJ220 was another area where the car faltered. The cockpit, though crafted from fine materials, was impossibly cramped, making the driving experience more uncomfortable than it had any right to be for such a high-priced luxury car. The rear seats were a completely non-functional afterthought, with no legroom or space to speak of, rendering them completely useless. In the context of a supercar that was meant to showcase Jaguar's performance and luxury prowess, these impracticalities were hard to overlook. The interior didn't feel like it was built for the driver's enjoyment or comfort. It was more of an afterthought, a misstep for a car that was supposed to redefine luxury on the road. Despite the luxurious design elements, such as the leather-lined interior and high-end materials, the XJ220's luxury was more superficial than truly refined. The car's focus seemed to be entirely on performance and exclusivity, with little thought given to the everyday usability or comfort of the car. While the exterior was sleek and aggressive, with the low, wide stance of a race car, the overall package felt like it was trying too hard to be something it wasn't. The transition from the original concept to the final production version stripped away much of the excitement and promise, making the car feel like a half-hearted attempt at a supercar rather than the groundbreaking vehicle Jaguar had once envisioned. The XJ220 became one of the most controversial supercars of its era, thanks to its mix of high aspirations and flawed execution. It was, in many ways, a victim of its own hype. The initial excitement over the concept was quickly dashed when Jaguar made the decision to downgrade the engine, leading to widespread backlash. The car's performance, though impressive in its own right, didn't justify its astronomical price tag, and it quickly became a symbol of misguided ambition in the world of supercars. Instead of being remembered as a triumph of engineering and design, the XJ220 is often seen as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overpromising and under-delivering. While the Jaguar XJ220 remains a rare and valuable collector's item today, its legacy is defined by the confusion and disappointment surrounding its launch. It was a car that was meant to be a true performance machine, but it was ultimately weighed down by poor decisions and missed opportunities. The XJ220 serves as a reminder that, In the world of supercars, luxury and performance must go hand in hand, and when one is sacrificed for the other, it can lead to the kind of stupid results that plague this iconic car.